Last week, we started off our psychology of wealth content, really looking at how our wealth and money is really driven by our mental software, our operating system, the thought patterns and programs that are programmed, given to us, handed down by family of origin, the people we spend the most time with early on in life, and then modified by life experiences. So we again talked about the importance of looking at this and knowing that this has even more weight than really any technical training that you will receive for a job or a business, because it all starts with the psychology. That's what's going to drive your application, your capacities, your limitations, your potential with the technical training and the success in your money-making vehicle. So we're going to take a deeper dive into the mental software, into the operating system, what some of the old beliefs that might be running that are creating challenges and limitations. So I want to set you up with a series of questions, just like all of the Inevitable You were asking great questions in a serious attempt to reframe what the deepest challenges for you are in any arena. And for this month, it's all about money, wealth, abundance. And so remember that the quality of your life is really driven by the quality of the questions that you're asking. Your mind is a very efficient machine, and it will find answers to any question. So when you ask great questions, it's going to drive quality answers. So therefore, and a little sidebar here, if you don't have what you want, if you don't have the financial success, you don't have the money that you're looking for, you really have to ask yourself and ponder, what are those questions that you're asking? And this great quote from Tony Robbins: the biggest reason you don't have what you say you want is the story you're telling yourself as to why you don't have it, no matter how true the story is. Remember, we have data of our life, our history, our past, and we have the software that's interpreting that data. The software is what creates the meaning, right? That's the story that you tell yourself over and over again. It's what's creating reality for you, what's true and not true, what's possible, not possible, what your ability to create this financial success picture you have, or your inability. It's all about the software. It's not you. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just the story you're telling yourself. It's the questions that you're asking that are driving the answers and the results. And so, for my OGs here, if you're not asking the right question to pinpoint the answer, you're not going to find, if you're not asking the right question, you're not going to find the right answer. It's going to lead you to how to solve whatever problem it is, whatever challenge you're experiencing. So for the new folks, again, just know that there's a lot of emphasis that we place on the story, the habitual sentences, the language that we're using, because that's driving the reality for us. So what are the phenomenal questions that we need to ask ourselves? First of all, and I alluded to this, I mentioned it in last week's call, do you believe that you can print money? And this is so very huge. It's such a big concept to really understand as to how it impacts how you're creating your wealth and your success. Why? Because, well, let's first look at, well, what does print mean? If you look at the definition, you can Google this. It comes right out of Webster here. Produce, and they give some examples or common ones when you think about printing, books, newspapers, magazines. To produce these things, especially in large quantities, and remember, we're talking about money here, by a mechanical process involving the transfer of whatever it is, right? So, involving the transfer of ink to paper, involving the transfer of, one currency into another, involving the transfer of your energy, your passion, your beliefs, your abilities, your skills into money. That's what print is. So when we talk about print, I'm not necessarily talking about the actual physical, act of printing dollar bills, but in a metaphorical sense, do you believe you have the ability to print your own money? And if you're still struggling with this metaphor, we'll ponder this. Can you print health? Can you print love? Can you print a better operating system, a mental software? Well, yeah, that makes more sense to us. You eat better foods, eat healthier foods, or you exercise, or you know, do something for your health. It transfers to, better or, worse health. That's very easy, quantifiable to look at. The scale goes up and down. Our cholesterol goes up and down. Our blood sugar goes up and down. Love, this is maybe not as, we're not able to quantify this as much. It's more of a qualitative thing, but, you put more time into a relationship, love, should go up, right? You do more acts of service. You say more, words of affirmation. You have more physical touch. These 5 languages of love, all transferring into the quality of your relationship, right? You spend time on a great program like this, or you read a great book, you go to some seminar, you upgrade your software, you upgrade your thought patterns, you upgrade this operating system that's running. So, the deeper reality is, what can't you print? Is there anything out there that you can't print for yourself? And you see, I have these things highlighted in orange throughout all these calls. This is a homework and journaling question for you to ponder and write down your answers. I mentioned this last time. Don't just ponder this. Don't just muse on it. Write it down. Write the language down so you can see it. You can see black and white. What's the software that's running? And, are the haves and have-nots, the people who have, great financial success and the ones who don't, are they separated by this belief in their ability that they can just print money and it's easy? So think about it. Journal on it tonight. And what we know, again, I mentioned or alluded to this last time, is that people, despite all their growth, challenges, everything, despite what they're doing, everything in their lives, they still hold finances out differently than anything else, different from love, different from health, different from leadership. It's this very sensitive topic people get very squirrely about, and it's almost held in its own box, separate from all these things, like all these rules that we talk about here in the Inevitable You system, these rules for success, that somehow it doesn't all apply to money, that it's harder to do with money. And what's my brilliant answer to this? Well, it's a number of reasons, and it really depends on the individual, on their software, what their family of origin messages and programming is. But here's some examples. Some are caretakers. They run this story again that they don't deserve their more money, which is very, especially in my realm here in mental health. There's so many gifted healers out there, and it's very paradoxical, counterintuitive. It baffles me that, there's a lot of these gifted healers that think they don't deserve the equal amount of or even greater amount of money in return for their services, which, if you think about it, it's probably the most influential, the most impactful, especially right now, coming out of COVID, thing that people need, and yet they feel guilty about accepting money for it. Certainly some of it is resources versus resourcefulness. Again, we talked about this last time, that there's this common perception that wealth is all about the amount of money that you have in your bank account, or you need resources. It's who you know. Yeah, no, that's not true. It's all about the resourcefulness. And we have our examples of lottery ticket winners who go bankrupt, right? So we know, and it's a large portion, 80%, probably more than that, end up going bankrupt. So it's not about the resources, it's how you use your resources. Some are not powerful enough to be rich, so they're running an equation that, they're hoping for money, they're wanting money, yet they don't run a program, a belief that they're, able to be that man or woman. They have this hidden parentheses. Yeah, I get this is true, and this can happen for other people. I get that, Warren Buffett, man, he was gifted, he's awesome, he best investor, but I can't do that. I know me. I know my potential. I know my limitations. There's this hidden parentheses. There's a lot of it tied up in risk and loss equations, right? So as you get older, you accumulate resources. You got a house, a mortgage, bills to pay. There's a lot more to lose as you get older. And so risk management, asset protection increases. When you're younger, you don't have as much to lose. You're willing to take more risk, right? So these equations, these programs get skewed over time. But the interesting thing is that it was for a lot of the successful people, it was the risky behavior in the first place that got them there, right? But then they transition into asset protection, lower the risk, don't want to lose anything, right? So is any of this really brilliant? Yeah, not really. Again, it's going to come back to this larger concept, and something that I want you to continue to keep in mind and think about and journal on is abundance and wealth an operating system or an application software? Meaning, we talked last time, we have these different application softwares, just like your computer has Microsoft Excel and Word and Chrome browser and Outlook for email. Same's true for your mind with, health and love and these different arenas of your life. Yeah, they have their own unique set of software, but they're all driven and all limited in their capacity by the operating system, or Windows or iOS for the Apple folks. It's all driven by the operating system, and it sets the thermostat. This is why it's so important. The thermostat effect: when things get a little too hot, you turn the temperature down. When things get a little too cold, you turn it back up. There's this unconscious, level of what I'll call, greatness or your success that you maintain based on things getting a little too uncomfortable, right? Hot or cold, right? And so this drives the results within each area. You want to be aware of, you want to know what these unconscious drivers, these unconscious voices and ghosts are that's maintaining the thermostat for you. Now, some examples of this. Again, I told you last time, write these things down. Really be capturing everything that that you believe about money, all of your views, all of your feelings, all of your thoughts, the messages from your parents, all these things on money. And let me check my stream here, see if we're still running strong here. All right, looks like it. So, exploring deeper our true views of money, which will reflect your manifestation, your ask or unask, your request for money or your request for not money, right? We're constantly asking the universe for something. It's either a positive or negative request, right? So when we're asking, it's what we want. When we're unasking, we're asking for what we don't want. We're, combating the manifestation for whatever the thing is that we want. So some common ones that we might find, common beliefs. Is money the root of all evil? Do you run that belief? A pretty common one, right? When we think about the greed that's out there and money driving a lot of the, corruption that exists, politics, the fact that the wealth disparity, in the world, the top percent, blah, 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 all these reasons that might go into the story you're telling yourself that's driving something like, here's why the money is the root of all evil. Well, think about what that creates. If you're saying the money is the root of all evil, is that a manifestation for money? Because, behind that is most people, I don't think there's, really anyone out there that wakes up and say, hey, I want to be evil today, so give me more money so I can be evil. No, if you're running this belief and you don't want to be an evil person, yeah, it's an unask for money. You're blocking the request, universe responding to your request for more money. It is part of this away pattern, and not to mention the energy that this holds. If you're associating money with evil and it creates frustration, it creates anger for you, well, yeah, you're not helping your manifestation. Now we look back at the formula that we've covered the last few sessions here in our law of attraction content. Your request, positive or negative, emotional intensity meter on a scale of 1 to 10 and the amount of time you do it, yeah, that's creating your reality. So if your emotional matrix is tipped on the negative, it's not serving you. Besides, who wants to feel frustrated all day about money versus excited, joyous for what you do have, the gratitude, all these things in the towards pattern side of things that's going to help your manifestation. Another example, do you hate rich people? Just like the money is the root of all evil. Well, if you hate rich people and you're saying you want to be rich, well, are you now saying you're going to hate yourself? Right? So it's another unask if you're requesting wealth, right? Do you worry when money is short? The anxiety, this is such a common one. The anxiety, the fear, the worry that happens. The minute you think about money, or the minute that your thermostat drops to an uncomfortable level and it's short, all of a sudden you're flooding your body with these emotions. Yeah, it might drive you to take the action to get back into your comfortable temperature, but it's far different from the excitement of requesting even more money or taking the actions to, catapult you out of this old thermostat, this old temperature you maintained, and a completely new, taking a quantum leap to a completely new, level that will be comfortable for a new you, or even greatest version of you. But just know, worrying, just like our don't spill the milk tool, this is where this pattern comes from. It's well-meaning. It wants to keep you safe. It's actually enhancing the probability that, money's going to be short, because you're fixated on money's short, and all the while you're flooding your body with unresourceful emotions. And one of our favorites here, do you hate paying taxes? Well, guess what? The more money you make, the more taxes you're going to have to pay. Even if you find, certain loopholes, and it's just a law, And even the new tax brackets now, you're going to be paying even more the more money you make. So if you want to make more money, then your manifestation is, I gratefully and excitedly love paying my taxes, because it just means more money's flowing in. Give me more taxes. So that should be a fun and interesting one for you to play around with. So our one observation here, wealth is energy, it's flow. Yet how many view it as something to hold on to? What happens when you squeeze a handful of sand? The harder you squeeze it, the harder it leaves, right? So when you're making it about ego and what people are going to think of you, and will the people like you? Will you lose your friends? Will you have the same friends? Any of these outside in forces of, what people say or what they think, if that's your motivation versus making this an inside out, centered, dream filled request that, the more wealth I have, the greater person I can be to serve even more people, right? The more you make it about ego, the more you make it about outside in. These are just examples of how you block the flow. These old beliefs, just examples of blocking the flow. So, are you asking more of you versus just affixed to the flow? Because it's not the flow that's at fault. It's not like the universe hears your request, or God hears your request and says, yeah, no, not for you. Sorry, gotta allocate more resources to the other people. No, the system has enough resources to give everyone what they need and want. So it's not about the system. It's not about the flow. You block the flow. Your old software, your old beliefs block the flow. It's not the economy or any other outside thing. It's your resourcefulness. So if you buy this and you don't have the flow you wish, or the money isn't coming in and flowing as fast as you want, are you asking yourself, what you're really asking for, right? Are you asking for more you to show up? Are you asking what could be blocking your flow versus something outside of you happening that's out of your control? So, to create healthy flow, to focus on more flow versus more money as a manifestation and a focus, right? Are you getting conscious? This is more about knowing who you are, who old you is, who new you needs to be, has to be, to create the financial success, versus doing more, asking more. Those things are great, but it has to start with getting conscious. So to take great time, write your answers down to these questions, get real, get conscious, understand who you are, understand what your software drivers are and what they need to be to create the vision you want. So that's our content. Again, we today's more of a deeper dive on old software, family of origin programming. Next week and the following calls will be focused more on tools. How do we design new? What do we really need to think and focus on and run as new beliefs to propel us forward?